It's a track that's rich in motorsport history.
When the sun shines, the shadows are long across the roadway.
From Formula One to sports cars and NASCAR, the hallowed grounds of Watkins Glen International have hosted many of racing's elite.
And here's the checkered flag.
The Grand Am Rolex Sports Car Series has roots at the Glen that span back to 2000. In that year, the 6-hour race was reborn and since has become one of the series' marquee events. In 3 of the past 4 years, the drivers who have won this race have gone on to capture the championship. Pruitt, Bergmeister and Gurney, champion drivers who have helped make this series what it is today. Turn 1 inside, Gurney thinks about it, deep on the brakes, and he takes the lead away from Pruitt. The 6 Hours of the Glen is next, and it's live on Speed. The surrounding countryside is breathtaking, and so too is this racetrack. It's the spiritual home of American road racing, where the history is as gripping as the top speeds. It's time for the Sahlen 6 Hours of the Glen at the wonderful Watkins Glen. And celebrating 2 significant landmarks in racing. 60 years of racing here at Watkins Glen and the 40th anniversary of the 6 Hour. And what a great day to be a couch potato. We're here for 2 hours, the Sahlen 6 Hours of the Glen, and then we go to qualifying for the Canadian Formula One Grand Prix. We come back for part 2, and that is for 3 hours between 2:30 and 5:30 Eastern, and then we take you away to NASCAR Sprint Cup final practice. So a really great day's viewing here on Speed. We bring you up to date after 5 of 14 races in the Grand Am Rolex Daytona Prototype Championship. It's a 19-point advantage to Memo Rojas and Scott Pruitt. And over the revelations of the season, really, Jim Matthews and Mark Goosens, and then a further 18 points further back, Alex Gurney and John Fogarty. And this is where they really started their run. They got their momentum 12 months ago here at the 6 Hours. Qualifying is a real talking point here this weekend, and this is the reason why some teams did not even get a flying lap. This is the reason. Ricciardo Zonta, moments after setting the fastest lap, crashed. By his own admission, it was his mistake. He simply made an error. Heavy damage to the front of the Proto Auto Krone Lola. And in a twist of irony, it allowed his manager, Max Angelelli, to win the pole. Chris Neville spoke with Angelelli and has more on this amazing comeback story by Wayne Taylor Racing.
SunTrust has had a rough season, and after Laguna Seca, things got worse. Traveling back to Indianapolis, the hauler burned to the ground in Texas. The team lost everything, the hauler, the car, and all of their at-track equipment. Luckily, they had this Riley that they ran at the Rolex 24 this year, and the Rolex Series community really got behind this team to get them to this race today. Max, you put the car on pole. How important was that for this team?
It's everything. It's very important. The guys did an amazing job. It's thanks for them if we are here, and thanks for team like Ganassi and Penske. They're helping us. Ganassi gave us basically everything.
Is the team ready to win today? Can they win with this car?
Yes, we can. We're pretty fast, and we have big chances to win this race.
Hopefully all the bad luck this team has had this year is left in Texas.
It really is a wonderful story. Hi everyone, Lee Diffie along with Calvin Fish and Dorsey Schrader as we welcome you to Watkins Glen on a beautiful day here in upstate New York to go racing. And Dorsey, I'll speak with you in just a moment. Cal, you first up. You can look at that as that's a nice bit of sugar for the team, for Wayne Taylor Racing, to really lift team morale after some terrible adversity.
Absolutely, Lee. I mean, this is a real shot in the arm for this team. After all of the problems, as Chris mentioned, the transporter burning down, they made the switch to the Dallara chassis, remember, in round 2. The car had tremendous speed and potential, but numerous on-track incidents have kept that car out of victory lane, even off the podium. Their championship is effectively over. They come here, they put the car on the pole, and it really took a lot of rallying around by not only the teams, but the Grand Am officials. In the rules, you're not allowed to switch back to that chassis, the Riley. They did so, but look at this. Talk about out of trouble. They're still getting in trouble. This is the morning warm-up, just 2 hours before the green flag here today. Michael Valiante makes this move down the inside of David Haskell, we're on board with, sending him straight into the tyre barrier. The SunTrust team looked at their car. It's in pretty good shape, but it wasn't a very smart move by Michael Valiante as we get ready for the start here today.
And just going back to that qualifying incident involving Ricardo Zonta, Dorsey, I made mention that several teams didn't really get a flying lap. They didn't get a proper shot, if you wish, at qualifying, and that affected two of our bigger teams.
It's going to be interesting. In 15th and 16th place, you've got Alex Gurney in the Gainesville car in 15th, alongside of the series point leader. It is Scott Pruitt right there in 16th position, but this is Watkins, Glen. 6-hour race, it really doesn't mean anything. It's no adversity. With all the different strategies, they'll go to the front. Speaking of strategy, we've seen guys come in early, and take their pit stop for the 45-minute rule. But if they do that this weekend, they'll make themselves have a 5-stop race. If they win a half hour, say, they could make it in 4 more stops. So there's going to be a split strategy. We'll see which way they call it.
All right. And we are preparing for the Sahlen 6 hours of the Glen. It's appropriate we see the 01 car there on the grid because a few short moments ago, Brian Till caught up with the master of endurance racing.
Scott Pruitt and Memo Rojas finished second at the 2007 Sahlen 6 hours of the Glen, and they overcame a lot of adversity to do that over a lap down at one point in time, and that adversity is back with this starting position for you, Scott. With these new pit rules, what can the folks at home expect to see strategy-wise in the early going to get you guys up towards the front?
Well, we're just going to keep doing what we've been doing. I'm really disappointed, and got to say, I'm sorry for the fans here yesterday because of the way qualifying worked out. A lot of guys didn't get a one flying lap. And so that's what put this whole mess on things, and hopefully Grand Am will take a close look at it. But for our standpoint with, the Ganassi boys, the longer races really suit I think really fall into our plate a little bit better. The car's been good. Telmac's car's been running really good. We've been extremely fast all weekend long. We just got to be smart. We're going to try and make the right calls like we've been doing the last couple of races and see what we can do. And 6 hours is a long time. It's a lot longer than what you think, and you just don't want to get racing too early on. Run hard, but don't put yourself in harm's way and wait for that chase to the checkered flag.
And this team has been on a roll. Don't forget, they have not finished off the podium all season long.
Look forward to seeing those guys come through the pack. Grand Am Rolex racing is all about two classes. We've dealt with Daytona prototypes. Now let's talk GT. And it's a 19-point advantage to Kelly Collins and Paul Edwards, the same as in Daytona prototypes. Then we go back to the TRG combination of Spencer Pumpelly and Tim George, been performing very well this year, and then a further 18 points back. Nick Ham and Sylvain Tremblay. But as Chris Neville found out, life is good when you're the championship leader.
Kelly Collins and Paul Edwards have grabbed 3 wins in the first 6 races of this year. Paul, as we look at the second half of the year approaching, how do you guys approach this race and the second half of the season?
Well, we approach this race trying to make it number 4 out of 7 races. But no, we've had a bit of adjustment with the weight that we've had on the car with the penalty adjustment, which we kind of came to grips with pretty quick with the great engineering on Banner Racing. So yeah, I think I'm very happy with the balance of the car. I think we're on for a good result here. Kelly and I will just have to try not to make any mistakes. The guys will make some great fast pit stops, and we should come out with a good result.
Well, the Banner boys were dominant at Lime Rock. Can they keep that momentum today?
Really has been a superb season for the Banner Engineering boys. Let's talk further on GT Dorse, because chasing them down in this Rolex GT Championship are the most successful team in GT competition. That's TRG.
But you got to know, there's no secret that there's a lot of frustration with the Porsche camps. They've got great cars, they've got great driver lineups, but there's nobody been able to put a Porsche in victory circle. They're frustrated. Let's look at TRG. They brought 5 cars here. That's a lot of cars, but I really like the 67 car, the car you referred to. It's Spencer Pumpelly, like you said, with Tim George, but add into the equation Andy Lally, a guy that certainly knows this racetrack. He knows how to win a 6-hour race. He's done it twice before.
All right, that's Pontiac, that's Porsche. You referenced that. Calvin, anyone can come up with those guys?
Well, I think it has to be the Mazda boys here today. They took the pole here yesterday in sensational fashion, the 69 car on the pole. But bittersweet weekend so far. The 70 cars we saw in that footage earlier, they're really scrambling to get this car to be on the grid. We saw at the end of pit lane, looks like the work has been complete, but what sort of shape will that car be in? And as we saw here last year for Sylvain Tremblay, he had a big crash here in the 6-hour and effectively broke the back of their championship charge.
Yeah, that was a tough blow this morning, but on the high side, on the positive side, Brian Till has more.
Well, the Speed Source Mazda team has been strong all season long. This will be their 3rd pole position, but for Jeff Siegel, this is your 1st pole position in Rolex GT competition. You took your first professional race win 2 weeks ago. Now your first pole, but is this Mazda going to be strong enough 6 hours here at the Glen to take the win?
Yeah, it's a long time. I think the heat's going to be a factor today, but the car is awesome. The crew's done a really good job. We rolled off the truck really strong. We've been at the top of the sheets all weekend. I can't say enough about the crew of this FXDD car. Marty Kinsey has just busted his butt to get the car in top shape. So I did my part, threw it on pole, and hopefully now we'll be there at the end.
The Speed Source team always strong in endurance competition. Remember, guys, this team, the 70 car, took the win at the Rolex 24.
Thanks, Brian, and congratulations again to Jeff Siegel as we highlight what to watch for in today's Sahlen 6 Hours of the Glen. As always, the 30-45-minute rules are in effect. Every driver must do 30 minutes if you wish to earn championship points, and every car must make a mandatory stop within the first 45 minutes.
The next thing is those early pit stops, as Dorsey mentioned. Look for some of the guys who didn't qualify well to make that early stop and effectively get rid of that 45-minute rule, which mandates the cars have to hit pit lane.
And the one other thing that they really have to watch out today for is heat. It's going to be about 93, 94 degrees. That heat really makes the driver get tired. The fatigue can really take you over on a long-distance race. They're going to have to be in fit, and they're going to have to know what their limitations are.
So the 23 there really struggling as the field comes around to take the green. This is a disaster. This is the brand new bodywork on the Crawford. Throttle cable, we're hearing, may be the issue there.
Oh, that is heartbreaking. Wonderful looking new updated Crawford. And we also have 3 key teams starting from pit road: Gainscote, Ganassi and Speed Source.
And of course, the Speed Source car was unable to make the grid. The other 2 cars are playing it smart, I think. They pulled themselves out of the rotation, not wanting to get into the wreck down in turn 1 that sometimes happens at these starts.
Wayne Taylor Racing, SunTrust, Pontiac Riley is at the front of this field to see the green flag first. Some luck, some fortune in qualifying for many. It doesn't matter now because we're racing. The Sahlen 6 Hours of the Glen is underway. Brian Frizzell on the outside, Mamo Gidley on the inside, and David Donoghue in the mix.
Everyone thought about a move to the inside, but this is 6 hours, a long race, as Scott Pruitt said. You've got to behave early.
And they played it smart there. As you see, everybody gets in single file. Now back behind that, here's the start of the GT. Let's see if these boys get it right.
And a foreign feeling for Jeff Siegel. He's on pole for the very first time in his Grand Am GT career. He's got the championship leader right alongside, who now tucks in. Inside defensive driving, smart by Paul Edwards.
Look at the 21 car there. An excellent start for Diego Alessi.
Now, can they work it out before they head up in the S's? You can't go through these S's side by side.
Alessi is up to 3rd. Wolf Hensler pushed back to 4th. And then you have Jonathan Bomarito in the top 5 in the Racer's Edge Mazda RX-8.
That team had a lot of work to do last night as well. Jonathan had a moment in the toe of the boot there in qualifying. Meanwhile, up front, Angelelli.
This is down into the toe of the boot, hard braking, what I told you about before. They'll climb the hill now, coming off this corner.
What's important here, Dorsey? Keep it clean, get into a rhythm, just relax.
Absolutely, all things you said right there are true. Oh, we've got a crash here. The Mazda, the 40, off in the gravel there, 67.
Well, that's the championship contending TRG car.
This is a disaster. Look at the damage to the right rear corner of Joe Foster in the Hypersport Mazda, but Tim George, a great season they've been having in that Porsche, but he looks crippled as well.
Yeah, I think the other side of that car, Calvin, I saw one of the wheels knocked off, I think the front left. This is a disaster of that team. That was the car we talked about being able to win here.
Well, if Kevin Buckler was frustrated with his season so far, this is just going to add fuel to that fire.
Let's take a look at what happened. Look to the top of your screen.
Oh, late move down the inside by George there. Clobbers Foster
he's
in
lucky.
the right rear corner. Nearly went over doors.
Yeah, lucky he didn't get over on top. Watch this. On board the 40 car. Watch this. Oh!
Huge hit. Very fast entry there to the inner loop, about 90 to 100 miles an hour.
That was rude.
That was big, and that was a lucky escape. Particularly for Tim George, that car did not roll.
Like he tried to climb over that inside curb, realizing that the gap was closing, Dorsey, but too late. And again, lap 1, 6-hour event. Think about your championship position.
Right at the top of the S's pump, and then another pump before I was going to the brakes, and then all of a sudden, straight to the floor.
Oh,
brake pedal. That's the reason.
There's your explanation. No brakes, and that's lap 1, so you know there's a failure, something there.
Let's take another look. We go aboard with Joe Foster in the 40. Look to the right and listen.
Joe was at apex, already accelerating through that corner, and felt the assault from Tim George. And as we understand from that radio communication, it looked like the brake pedal just went to the floor.
This is the trio of Joe Foster, Charles Espenlaub, and Hollywood actor Patrick Dempsey. Patrick making his return to Grand Am competition after 3 race meetings away. and that is a very frustrating and disappointing start to the day.
Well, depending on the length of the cleanup, there you can see the field is cutting through the inner loop there, not to run over any of the debris and give the safety crews a chance to clean that out. But once we see that pit lane open, I imagine a bunch of guys will take advantage to take that early pit stop.
Well, guys, Bill Auberland was in right after the green flag came down. They got that throttle cable fixed on the Ruby Tuesday car. However, he did lose a lap right when they were putting the rear deck back on. The SunTrust car came around and crossed the line, so that car down 1 lap right now, but we've got 6 hours to go, so hopefully they can get back on the lead lap.
The trouble is this year, though, Chris, they don't have the lucky dog rule where if you're the first car a lap down, you get that wave around. That has gone away, so it's very hard to recover when you drop a lap here on this long race.
Kevin Buckler talking to Spencer Pumpelly right now. And Spencer, you and I had a chance to talk just before the race. We were talking about TRG carrying that banner for Porsche in the championship hunt. Any word from Tim as to what happened?
Yeah, he was actually complaining about a real soft brake pedal on the out lap and on the pace lap. And we told him to take it easy, try to nurse it back for the first caution. Unfortunately, it got worse, and I hate it for the Mazda. But it wasn't really Tim's deal. It was just something in the brake system, and that's what happened. So it's disappointing for sure. This is going to hurt the championship hunt, but we're going to try to get it together, put some laps on it, get some points.
Still a long way to go in this race and a long way to go in this season as well, guys.
And many a championship have been won and lost by a solitary point. You can still score a Grand Am championship point for finishing 30th. They will do their best. TRG Motorsports. If you're just joining us, we welcome you to historic Watkins Glen International for round 6 for Daytona prototypes, round 7 for Grand Am GT cars here in the Rolex Sports Car Championship. Beautiful day here in upstate New York, but we've got away to a very slow start. On the opening lap, there was a collision between 2 GT cars, the TRG Porsche of Tim George Jr. and the Hypersport Mazda RX-8 of Joe Foster. That has caused our first full course yellow, and they've been diving for pit road.
Here we see the 61 car deciding to stay out. Brian Frizella's the third front row start for those boys, and I think they may be playing into the strategy that you talked about, Dorsey, by waiting maybe 20 to 30 minutes in. Not that I don't think we're going to see full green flag racing today. You could theoretically do it on 4 more stops, just splitting the way to the checkered flag this afternoon. So different strategies. I think at this stage in the 6 hour, I'd have taken that early stop, but we'll have to see how it plays out.
And that was such a strange thing. What that was, of course, was an equipment failure. He didn't even have time to get the brakes up to temperature where they would boil the fluid or something. And literally complained about a spongy pedal or a pedal that was soft. Well, if you start out a race with a soft pedal, it's not going to work. There's 23 getting serviced and a bunch of GT cars coming in.
I think the 23 car would have stayed out. They were hoping that all of the DP field pitted. Then they would have, in fact, got back on the lead lap. That didn't happen with a few cars staying out. And now the pit lane rules, the GT cars are allowed in.
It's the 87 Farnbacher Lowell's Porsche, the championship winning car from last year. Brian.
Hinsler back out of his pit stall. Pit road very busy down here. They took a splash of fuel only and back on pit road, but looks like they're holding the GT field here at the end.
And the rule is there, you have to be able to blend in. So that's a call made by the pit lane marshal. Once he sees a gap in the traffic, it's not like you have to wait for the full field or all of the DPs. As soon as they see a gap, they will release cars out of pit lane.
In that outside lane, speed limit 45 miles per hour cannot be exceeded. So if you've not passed the car alongside and you're doing 45 and he's doing 45, you've got to give way. And then sometimes you got to give away several positions.
Hensler got very tight there on the 32 car, trying to dive for its pit box.
Chris?
Well, Patrick Dempsey's been missing the past few rounds because he's been promoting his movie, but now it's good to be back to doing the important stuff, obviously, but obviously a tough start today. What did Joe say about the incident?
Yeah, it looks like the front right suspension is torn off the car during the hit there, so it's unfortunate. It's the first lap. It's a long race. We'll take it, we'll fix it, and we'll get back out on the track later on today.
Is the team pretty set up, so is it going to be a quick fix, or are you guys going to be behind the wall for a while?
Well, we need to take a look at it and see what happens, but hopefully we'll get it fixed and get back out there. I mean, it's racing. It's just unfortunate it happened in the first lap.
Okay, I know this has been kind of a learning year for this team, and the team really didn't expect to win. Looking towards next year, you hoping to come back and grab a victory here?
Yeah, certainly. I think this year's been a development year, moving up to the GT class. So we expected a steep learning curve, and it's been a little steeper than we expected. But that's racing. What are you going to do? You're just going to keep at it, keep learning, and take that experience into next season.
Hopefully get some track time today.
I do have one question about that whole brake thing. If you had no brakes when you went into the inner loop, why would you try to turn in there when you've got that escape road? You could have gone straight on.
Well, yeah, stay to the left. I mean, if you commit to the inside knowing you don't have brakes, it's going to be an issue. Stay to the left side of the track, which gives you an out.
And there is the Hypersport Mazda on the flatbed and will be heading back to the paddock area. And let's hope that Joe Foster and the boys can get that car back out on track to grab at least a few championship points and to give Patrick Dempsey some valuable race miles. Lights are off on the Pontiac G8 pace car, and that will be heading to pit lane shortly. Brian Frizzell, and a late addition to the AIM Autosport team with Estonian driver Tonis Kasemets. Very fast, former champ car driver. He is in that leading car later on today.
There you see Mamo Gidley really trying to work those tires. When you run around on hot tires and you get some pickup, those balls of rubber, it's very hard to get those cleaned off as you prepare for green. Here we go.
Smoke out of the one car there.
It's Ian James, is it? No, Ian's a little further back. Let's go racing. The 6 hours of the Glen at Watkins Glen. On the inside, the 60 of Oswaldo Negri.
And that's Garcia down there in the 16 car, the Chiva Coyote.
Here is the Spirit of Daytona car, the 09, and it gives Oswaldo room. Nice work from Marc-Antoine Cameron. And a lot of smoke from
Ian James.
It's Ian James, yeah. It's that car I saw at the start. It was smoking at the back pretty heavily, and it's getting worse. If you were behind him, you surely wouldn't like all that oil on your windscreen.
I think.
No, it's the two car. It's the Samex car. Ian James is a little further back.
That's the BMW-powered car.
Our most recent race-winning car.
Henry Zogay behind the wheel. Ian Ryan DL took that victory at Mazda Raceway, joined this weekend by David Empringham. There you see it, Dawes.
Yeah, that can't tell if that's coming out of the tailpipe or if it's coming just from the back of the car like an oil leak yet. Looks more like a leak situation.
All of the teams here have commented on that BMW power. Prodigious straight line speed here on these long straightaways at Watkins Glen has really been performing well, and I think they are definitely another factor here today, but with problems early that could take them out of the running. More damage.
Again, turn 6. This has been the lace of the boot has been a real problem, and that's just unusual. I don't know if it's slippery this weekend, but we've had a lot of incident right there.
We have. It's a difficult corner, but numerous incidents there. That's Hensler.
The Farnbacher Lowell's team have been enduring a very frustrating weekend, and this just compounds their problems.
These Porsche guys are just snake bit. I mean, unbelievable.
Hensler's had a tremendous record here with 2 victories in the 6 hour dating back in 05 and 06.
Look at the cockpit just full of smoke.
Well, he risks blowing that tire and shredding off the rest of that bodywork, but I think he's taken a pretty big hit, Calvin, in front of the wheel, I believe.
This is Roberto Garcia in the 29, the second Allegra Motorsports car.
See the left muffler is tweaked. It's pushed up. That's one of the vulnerable points on these Porsches. It will have bent the pipes going up into the engine, robbing it of power.
Let's see if we can decipher what happened here on the restart. Oh, Garcia
just loses it. Hensler's committed to the outside, nowhere to go. And then he backs into him. That was the second hit that did the damage, Dorsey.
Yeah, that's the damage I saw in front.
This is what it looked like from the 66 TRG Porsche.
You've got to stay on the brake pedal when you make a spin like that. That didn't happen. It hurt Wolf Hensler.
Back right into him. You know, Wolf was doing everything he was supposed to. He read the wreck perfectly. He got his car slowed down. He went around the outside, was regaining the track, and then the guy leaves off the brakes and backs into you.
Brian's at Farnbacher Lowell's. Brian?
Well, Wolf Hensler, a very experienced driver, Porsche factory driver, but significant damage to this right rear. It looks like most of the contact was in front of the right rear, but as it comes back and it gets into that tire, you got to wonder what it's done to any suspension components on the right rear of this Porsche crew going to work right now with some of their fine adjustment tools. Something you might expect to see on pit lane at Bristol or something like that. They've got the hammer out trying to move the bodywork. They can put the right rear back on and see if they can get back out, guys, but significant damage here.
I think that watch repair tool working pretty good.
Wow, a very stop-start beginning to the Sahlen 6 hours at the Glen, but it's pretty nice. If you're Brian Frizzell, he has about a 1.5 second margin over Mamo Gidley. First to second. We'll be back. Quick reminder for you about 101 cars you must drive. This summer, comedian Alonzo Bowden takes you on an automotive adventure, so don't miss out on the experience and fun of getting behind the wheel of 101 cars you must drive. Network Series premiere June 23, exclusively here on Speed. And as we come back from break, we welcome you back, and we hear we're under a full course caution because of the 74 GT Porsche of Andy Brockbar has come to a halt at the inner loop. You can see Andy just to the right of screen there. He's safe, he's okay, but the car is done for the day, I would say.
This looked similar to what I would think would be a catastrophic engine failure, which Porsche never has. This would be an electrical failure on the brakes, but let's see what happens here. Look up in front. Oh yeah, that was big.
Yeah, that was major. Such a shame. Andy Brumbaugh, one of the up-and-coming drivers, really is trying to make his mark here. Very thrilled to be in the car this weekend. Regularly runs in the Coney Challenge, and that's a disappointing day for him.
Boy.
All right, let's get an update while we're away. The two came to pit lane.
Well, Lee, they've taken the engine cover off. The crew going to work on the oil tank over on the right-hand side, checking all the lines and also checking a couple of the sensors where they plug into that oil system. Considerable amount of oil on the under tray underneath the engine here, so they definitely had a pretty significant oil leak. In the beginning, they thought maybe it was just the catch tank and a little bit of overflow, but obviously more than that, so crew going to work right now to try to find those gremlins.
Tough break for our Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca winners. They were looking for back-to-back. They just keep getting better and better, this team. Peter Barron's Samax organisation, the Steve Dynan-built BMW power plant in the Riley chassis. And it's not yet the updated Riley chassis either, so that was a sweet little victory for them in the older bodywork in California just 3 weeks ago. Let's talk more about the 57 Stevenson Motorsports Pontiac.
Well, problems right now for Andrew Davis. The driver ID system not working in that car. When the race initially started, it was working, and Davis was shown up as the driver. However, after we went back to green after that last caution, the system did not work. So he's been messing around the car, trying to plug it into his plug-in spot a couple times, also working over to Robin Liddell's spot to see if the system would work over there. It's not working. This caution being very helpful to this team because they're going to try and keep him out on track, see if they can do a couple more things before he comes to pit lane and they have to actually get under the hood. This team coming back after that strong run at Lime Rock where they had that plug wire problem, but fought back hard and got a third place finish. This problem here is going to push them well back in the field, though.
We'll make the most of this caution period. We'll squeeze in another commercial break. Stay with us. Lots more from Watkins Glen on the other side of this. Motorsport is such an integral part of this beautiful little town of Watkins Glen here in upstate New York. I mentioned at the top of the broadcast, it's a great day, beautiful day to go racing, but this is a very historic place to come and visit. And of course, motor racing first began here on the streets of Watkins Glen back in October of 1948, 60 years ago.
Here we see some of the guys who didn't take that early caution to pit. Ryan Frizzell, Aldo Negri. One guy who stayed out there was Nemo Gidley, so he will still have to stop before that 45-minute mark. But strategy, Chris, what do you think?
Well, also the 60 car, Oswaldo Negri into pit lane. Just fuel, no tires on that stop. And Mike Shank saying right now, we're going to really roll the dice, try and do one less stop than everybody else out here. So maybe 4 more stops for the Shank boys. Brian?
Thinking that's exactly what's going on down at AIM. They came in fuel only, and that was interesting. As hot as it is, you might think that they would want tires as well. That team running so strong this year, they have not qualified outside the top 5, but they've not finished inside the top 5. So that team's saying we need a little better communication between the team and driver. We need to make fewer mistakes on our pit stops, and we just need a good basic strategy. That's what they're going to work on today, and they're going to see if they can improve their finishes, guys.
Well, Calvin, that was at about 22 minutes when those guys came in to take that fuel. So we had heard that some cars could maybe do that in 20 minutes. So I think they're going to try that 4-stop strategy.
Yeah, I think what they need to do now if it went green, which is a big if, they need to get about an hour 7, an hour 8 per fuel load to do it on 4 more stops. So I think that's certainly possible, but I think we're going to be throwing a few more curveballs with incidents today.
Yeah, I think so too.
Saying that this race will go green's like saying you'll keep your temper on the golf course.
Easy, big fella.
Okay, we got more questions coming.
I think the neat thing with the 61 car this year is the consistent driver pairing with Mark Wilkins and Brian Frizzell. And they're working very well together. 2 of the young guns in the series. And as Brian mentioned, they just need to really tidy things up a little bit. A few faux pas in the pit lane. Drivers miscommunicating, coming in when they shouldn't. So I think that team is certainly on the rise, and they'll get that result they're looking for, a podium finish soon.
Let's show you some of those frustration points for the AIM Autosport Exchange Traded Gold car and team. And we begin down in Mexico, where they were in a very strong position. And this was one of those stories of a 20-cent piece really hampering their efforts. From memory, it was a seal, and that took them away from a potential podium, maybe even a win. Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca, just check the frustration here from the team.
This is an air jack that would not, the airline would not take the wheel. The guy's beating his head on the fender. The car won't go up.
Once again in a prominent position, and it just eludes them. Just got away again. However, today could be their day.
Well, unlike a single-seater where you can have that relief jack where they come in and basically lift the car off the ground, you can't do that with a sports car with that huge nose and the weight. So different deal here in sports car racing.
Quick reminder that we will be going away to the qualifying for the Canadian Formula One Grand Prix, and we'll be back with part 2 of the Sahlen 6 hours of the Glen here from 2:30 till 5:30 this afternoon. 3 more hours to come after F1 qualifying from Montreal. Second Farnbacher Lowell's car is serviced. Pierre Caffer very frustrated after qualifying. Things just didn't go his way, was not happy. 68 TRG car being serviced. Brian Sellers made a very strong start. Chris, what do you have?
Well, guys, we already saw with the 40 car, them needing some more suspension components on that car for the fix after that crash in the first couple laps. Banner Boys all ready for any incidents that might happen on track. We can see 4 corners completely set up, control arms, shocks, springs, rotors, brake, everything. Leighton Reese saying that this rack right here, about $100,000 worth of components already pre-assembled, ready to go on the car. And then we've got 2 noses for the 06 and the 07 down here, completely set up, radiators, ducting, everything. Both of these noses about $30,000. So right here, the Banner Boys, $160,000 in parts, ready if things go wrong.
Of course, that's why they call it a crash cart, too.
Yeah, really. And I think it's a great investment because this 6-hour race can really punch a hole in your championship season, so you need to be ready. And boy, what a move these Banner Boys have done over the last 18 months. They came to Daytona last year. They looked overwhelmed, but they've really turned things around and leading this championship.
Work still continuing on the number 87 Farnbacher Lowell's car. Dirk Werner behind the wheel right now. They put him in just to get him some points, but that car had to come back to pit road. The crew going to work. I thought I heard him say upright, so they may be changing the entire upright here on the right rear of this car. Significant damage. We talked about the hit happened just in front of that right rear tire, but when you get a hit like that, the car moving forward, it puts all that energy back into the suspension, pushes it backwards, and that's where that damage comes from in the back.
Dirk Werner, the defending GT champion, is sadly not even a contender at this point in the 08 championship. We're getting close to going green. It's Mamo Gidley for the Doran team in the Kodak Dallara, who leads the way from David Donahue, a 2-time winner here at Watkins Glen. Ian James, Max Angelelli and Eric Vanderpool, the top 5. Lights are out on the Pontiac G8. We're set to go again for the second time today. End of our second full course caution. Let's go racing, boys. Here we go at Watkins Glen. Green flag flies.
Well, Gidley may be at the front, but one thing we know for sure, he'll only be there for 16 minutes at the most. He needs to make a pit stop before that 45-minute mark.
On the inside, the gains code 99. Remember, it started from pit road. Great strategy, good driving, and it and the 01 Ganassi Telmex Lexus are in the mix, as expected.
I'll tell you one place where this 99 car is fast, and that is through the inner loop. Gurney and Fogarty are just sensational through that part of the racetrack.
John Fogarty was frustrated for his teammate Alex Gurney because Alex only gets 3 chances a year to qualify, and they are for the longer races, the endurance races. John Fogarty does all of the qualifying for the sprint races, and yesterday they didn't even get a good shot at it because of the Zonta crash. Pruitt has a look at Vanderpool. No option through there.
We've seen Scott Pruitt being very aggressive in these sort of situations this year. Will he push it here? No. Thinks better of it. Tough place to pass.
But the next corner is a good place to pass, and he'll probably give it an attempt as he goes into the brake zone for the toe of the boot. No, not close enough.
Is it frustrating at this point in an endurance race, Dorsey? You want to get it done, but you say, hey, don't make any mistakes this early.
Well, for a guy like Scott Pruitt, no. I mean, he is so cool-headed. He is the best at these endurance races. You know, any race over 6 hours in length, he's won 10 times in races this length or longer.
He is the master of the endurance race. He's patient. He knows what it takes to win, and they're in pretty good shape. Starting at the back of the pack, now he looks to the inside. Vanderpool, though, a lot of experience. He's not going to give it up, but Pruitt gets a better exit there.
Oh, there we go, got him. Position made, and here comes Matt Plum in the rumbum.com. BMW executes the move. Nicely done.
And that was a reactionary pass. That was a really good thing that you saw right there. Matt Plum do. He had the momentum. When the 2 cars got side by side, he said, I'll take that position too.
You may remember at Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca, this car was spectacularly on fire. About $150,000 worth of repair work to the back end of that car. Gene Siegel's Siegel Sport team have done a tremendous job in the past 3 weeks.
Well, the amazing thing is they've had their own hard work, but Wayne Taylor from SunTrust even credited that team with helping them out. So that's how far and the reach has gone across the paddock to try and get these cars on track here today.
Let's talk more about the 77 and the 58, Brian.
Memo Gidley running very strong in that Dallara this weekend, fielded by Kevin Doran. And I talked to Memo before qualifying. He said, I think we've got a very good shot at the pole. That's how strong that car is and how confident they are in it. Kevin Doran always fielding good cars here. He's won the 6 hour before, back in 2001 and in 96. I think he has like 8 wins here as a team owner. So very, very good every time they come to the racetrack. Unfortunately for them, that qualifying session mixed up with that red flag, and so they had to start back in third. And Calvin, as you mentioned, the run good right now, but in the next few minutes we'll have to see that car on pit road.
Yeah, and Gidley had a big wiggle there going through the inner loop, which allowed Donahue to certainly close that gap up. But Gidley coming off a big victory. He won a supercar race down in Monterrey, Mexico just a couple of weeks ago, so he loves to drive, Dorsey.
No, he does that indeed. Talking about Kevin Duran, you know, Brian was talking, you look about the years of road racing sports cars at this racetrack, and Kevin Duran's cars have always been in the heat. It's always been a good car. He's got a great setup for this racetrack.
It's Memo Gidley over David Donahue. Very special weekend for Brumos Racing. We'll talk more about that in a moment. He's being put under increasing pressure from Mike Shank Racing's Ian James. The blue and black Ford-powered Riley is in position 3. Then Max Angelelli, Alex Gurney, Scott Pruitt, Matt Plump, Eric Vanderpool. Look how tight it is.
We're going to see some action here in a moment with those 3 boys, starting with Pruitt moving forward.
Well, like I said, starting at the back like they did is not that big of a problem on a 6 hour race on this racetrack. A lot of passing opportunity, and both these teams have good fast race cars, good drivers. They'll find their way to the front.
I think you need to treat this race, as Pruitt said, with a lot of patience. It's almost like a basketball game. Wait for that final quarter, the final 90 minutes, and then start to be in position and make your move.
The teams and drivers competing this year for the Robert F. Snodgrass Memorial Trophy. Bob, as we knew him, the late Bob Snodgrass. And look at Angelelli go a little wide. Gurney will have taken note, and he takes action. Looked at the inside.
The car just did not cut at all, Calvin. It just didn't turn in well. You saw he was trying to get it down into the apex, but it just would not respond.
He was out wide there, and Gurney is so fast through that inner loop, through the middle of it, and it gives him tremendous exit speed as well. There you see Pruitt in the blue and white Telmex machine, just sitting back, watching, waiting.
That's what you do in an endurance race, too. You sit back there just like you're talking about, Calvin, and if something happens, you take advantage of it, but you don't press. You don't continually run hard for 6 hours. You have to do a little cruising, too.
Pruitt can probably see that Gurney is a little bit faster than the 10 machine, and if they get into it, get side by side, maybe take advantage.
It's a Ford-powered Dallara leading this race over a Porsche-powered Riley, and then a Ford-powered Riley. It's a special day, Chris, though, for Gainsco Racing. They've had a lot of success here. They want more.
Yeah, Bob, look at it last year. This race is where the team really became dominant last season, going for that championship. Is the team really looking to try and get that dominance back for the second half of the season?
Yeah, definitely. This track has been really great to the Gainsco 99 team. We won twice here. We were second twice here. Won both races last year. The car feels really good, and we'll see what happens. 6 hours is a long time, but we feel pretty good right now.
You know, just looking at the beginning of this year, we just haven't seen the dominance out of this team. What has kind of been missing from last year?
Well, I mean, I don't want to sound like a crybaby, but I think there's a little bit of a difference in power. That's the biggest thing. We've had a couple of mistakes. We were called in Mexico City. Tough break for us. I think we could have won 2 or 3 races this year, but there's a lot of racing to go. We were in 7th place last year, I think, when we came here, and we're in 3rd now, and our drivers are good, our crew is perfect, and we got a Pontiac car that's ready to make it happen.
Well, they were quickest in the morning warm-up, so they're hoping to turn things around.
Bob Stalling said we won here twice last year. That's right. They won the Sahlen 6 hour, then they won the short race in August. No team in the DP era has ever won 3 races straight at Watkins Glen. We'll see if the boys in red can do it. We're back at Watkins Glen for the 6 hours of the Glen. 2 classes of racing at the one time in Grand Am Rolex Series competition. We've seen a lot of the Daytona prototypes. And look at this, clean, clear space around the pole sitter and GT class leader for Speed Source It is young Jeff Siegel.
Doing a great job. He's already made his pit stop, so this isn't a false picture we're looking at. He has that lead over the rest of the GT field right now.
This is a perfect racetrack for that Mazda. You know, Mazda, a momentum car. This is such a fast racetrack, Calvin. The only really slow corner is down there to the toe of the boot. The rest of it, really quick, fast, wide open up through these S's.
There we see the clock in the left-hand corner of the screen. Just over 6 minutes to run. So for Mamo Gidley, time is running out.
Back to the second place car, the 30 of Jonathan Bomarito. Here's the 72 of Lawson Archenbach. For Autohaus Motorsports.
Guys on the 30 did a good job too. That car crashed yesterday in qualifying and they repaired it quite well.
So it's Mazda, then the first of the Pontiac GXPRs, and then the first of the Porsches, the 66 TRG Porsche of factory driver Richard Westbrook. Well, let's go down into the race's edge cam.
John Meraki down here with a big smile on his face, watching his car in second place. Everything's got to be good after that qualifying incident yesterday, though. How much damage was to the car?
Yeah, the car had some rear end damage, but it was all cosmetic damage. We were able to repair the car last night. Guys worked really hard on the crew. They were here until 1 o'clock in the morning. But the car is perfect, absolutely perfect.
Now, you got to be pretty excited the way that Jonathan's driving that car right now. His first Rolex race. You going to get him back later the year?
Well, we hope so. Jonathan and I have been trying to work together for a couple of years now, and the opportunity finally was right for this race, so we'd like to try to continue.
Now, the team coming off their first top 10 of the year back at Lime Rock.
And we stay with GT. We cross our fingers for John Meraki, one of the nice guys in the paddock, one of the smaller teams, but trying very hard and always presents a beautiful car and team at Grand Am Rolex Series competition. We climb aboard the 66 TRG with Richard Westbrook of England. And let's take a ride. Some sounds of speed around this magnificent, historic Watkins Glen circuit.
Yesterday, and he said, boy, it's hot here. I said, yeah, for an Englishman it is, mate. It's still about 33 degrees over there.
It is unusually warm, though. This race normally typically is not anywhere near in the 90s. It's about 93, 94 degrees by this mid-afternoon.
I saw one of your fellow Brits yesterday, Tim Sugden, who's in this race. He said, you're not British anymore.
Why is that? Because I don't wear long white socks and blue Adidas trainers or something.
Look at this. Race leader Mamo Gidley coming through the traffic, doing a good job, but he has no real margin of lead over David Donoghue, who slightly gets balked there by Kevin Roush, who had an incident just before we came back from that last commercial.
He won't be happy about that. That's the thing they always tell you in driver's meeting too. Getting passed by one of these DP cars, don't assume that it's the only one. There's always usually one tucked behind.
Smoke up ahead of the leader there, going through the inner loop. May have been some contact between a couple of the cars. Yes, there is.
Good point.
It is the PR1 Pontiac 32 car of Mike Forrest.
His first visit here to Watkins Glen. His dad raced here back in the 70s. He was very excited about getting on track here.
They've done a lot of work around Watkins Glen, paving a lot of the old gravel traps that's caused all the cars to get stuck. That is one of the places, however, that isn't paved yet. The inner loop gathers up more cars probably than anywhere. I don't know what's going on with turn 6 this week, though, because it's been the nemesis of everyone.
Looks okay, doesn't it? No obvious damage. Maybe they were just arguing over the same piece. Damage here on the 21, though.
That's going to fly off there in a minute. Wrap itself around the windscreen.
This team, Matt Connolly Motorsports, have been sensational this year. As a Pontiac, but it's the GTO, which has a shorter wheelbase, slightly smaller greenhouse effect, and there you see him struggling. The leaders there, however, Gidley has 2.5 minutes. Will he pit this lap, or will he try and stretch it one more? Donoghue putting the pressure on.
That really helped David Donoghue, Dorse, didn't it? Slight bobble there because they were trying to get around Diego Alessi, and that's helped the 58.
If I was Memo, I'd be coming in right now, because why risk it? He is coming in.
Must make that mandatory stop before 45 minutes. So he's made it by just over 2 minutes.
They should definitely be on for 4 more stops easily within their window to get to the checkered flag here today.
Good to see the Kodak Doran Delara at the front of the field. Brian.
Gidley to the marks, fuel going in, and guys, this is interesting. No tire set out right now, fuel only, and he has spent a lot of time out there on those Pirelli tires, almost 45 minutes. We've not seen anybody double stint, especially in the heat right now, but that's exactly what they're doing down here at the Doran Kodak team. Gidley down and away. His teammate Brad Yeager looking on. Yeager, a lot of experience on this racetrack in the Indy Light Series, so this team right now, they're rolling the dice.
Wow, Kevin Doran, that's a gutsy car right there. I think, yeah. But he knows how to win here. We talked about it before, the years of experience he's had at this racetrack.
Gidley may need a Yeager when he finishes a double stint on those tires, but Pirelli tires certainly done a great job, and the key is having a good balance on the race car. Then you can maybe double stint them, but it's rolling the dice certainly.
Comes out right alongside Bill Aublin in the updated Crawford for Ruby Tuesday Championship Racing.
We should say that car unloaded here and has never turned a wheel in competition with that new bodywork. And they were actually just still, when they got here, bolting it together and putting fluids and stuff in it.
It's a credit to Max Crawford and his team, his employees. Obviously, this is Alex Job's Ruby Tuesday Championship Racing, but Max Crawford, the manufacturer, and from the point in time in which they got the drawing from designer Andy Scriven and Max's daughter, Catherine Wallace, they built this new bodywork in 30 days. He said from a piece of paper to when we had to get the car scanned, it was 30 days. And he said, I can't thank my boys enough.
And I tell you what, my personal favorite, I think that's the best looking car out there presently. You know, it's just a real clean, nice, small car.
It's a beautiful car, and the key with the rules with the new bodywork regulations for this year, that car had to show up on track at this race. This was the cutoff point.
Yeah, if they didn't make it here, they weren't going to be allowed in, so they did everything they could. They got the car here. They had some tech infractions. They've got some problems they got to work on, but they've made it, so now they're in with the new car.
One of the problems they had over the course of this weekend was that their engineer, Greg Fordall, got stuck in Philadelphia with some flight delays. That really cost them a lot of valuable track time in terms of having their engineer to work with here on Friday.
Here's a comparison for you. The top left, the older Crawford and the revised one, the 2008 Crawford at the bottom.
A complete rebuild. Nothing from the old car, really.
Look at the flat top, Dorsey, on the new one.
Yeah, the roof of the new car completely flat. You see it there. I like the rear bodywork. I really like what they've done with the rear end of this car.
There's some trick stuff underneath as well. It's got a Dallara-looking sort of nose section to it, but it's underneath the front, the aero underneath, where Crawford are very secretive. They don't want anyone to see it.
It's one of the wonderful things about Grand Am Rolex Series competition. The people, many behind the design, are real people here in the series. And of course, this is the new Dallara. And before that, it was a Doran. Let's speak with the man himself.
Kevin Doran looking on right now, and if there's a poker player on pit lane, it's this man. And Kevin, you've done something that we haven't seen anybody do all year long, and that's that double stint on these Daytona prototype tires. Was that your call, or does that come from the cockpit?
I did it. We don't have that many laps on them, really, with all the yellow, so I don't think it's a big risk.
And Memo's not shy about driving on anything, is he?
No, he'll race anything you give him, so from go-karts to DPs or Indy cars, it doesn't matter to Memo.
You know, you've always seemed to have the magic at this racetrack, Kevin. What is it about this racetrack that you guys have found that anything you come back here with, you run well?
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is. I'm actually starting to think back and try and understand why, but we've always been very good here. I guess it's our general technique for setup just suits this place. So, I don't know, 8 or 9 wins or something over the years. It's kind of a cool place for us.
Definitely a cool place for them. The other thing that's cool, maybe their tire bill will be a little bit lower at the end of this weekend.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, I think that's a good call. When you're paying the tire bill, I'm sure it is a good call, but I think it's really rolling the dice here, and Kevin Doran has won races dating back to the mid-'80s in the Al Holbert days, so great to see him back up front again.
Gidley was the last to pit. All cars made their mandatory stops before the 45-minute mark, and David Donahue is the race leader. We're back. What a day. What a beautiful day in the Finger Lakes region of upstate New York. And this is the 6 hours of the Glen at Watkins Glen. Round 6 and 7 of the Grand Am Rolex Sports Car Championship. Round 6 for these cars, the Daytona prototypes. And of course, just 2 weeks ago, we had a GT-only race at Lime Rock Park in Connecticut. Our race leader, David Donahue, with his regular co-driver, Darren Law, not going for the 3-driver format. Some teams saying 2's enough, 3's get too busy. Others saying we definitely need 3. Let's get to pit road, an update.
talk about that choice of 2 versus 3 drivers, and I was talking to Darren Law earlier. This is the first time all year long that he and David Donahue are going to use a cool suit. So they too are concerned about the heat. They elected not to take IVs before the race to hydrate. But they are definitely going with that cool suit. This team's so strong. Following Daytona, they have not qualified worse than 4th, and that was today. But they just can't get the finish. They're coming off their best finish of the year, which was 5th at Laguna. But still, guys, they just need to make some good luck for themselves because they've been falling on hard times as far as finishes go.
I think they need to start making the right calls as well, Brian. They've been in position to win. They've had pole position. I spoke to Mike Colucci about that this weekend. He said, you know, these new pit regulations have really got us stymied a little bit. We're gradually getting our heads around it as to what we need to do, but we've seen numerous front-running teams pit at certain stages of races, and they've decided to stay out, and it's really caught them up at the end of the race.
There was just talking about the 58-hour race leading car as we watched the 10 from Wayne Taylor Racing in the 99. They went testing since our last race in Laguna Seca to the proving grounds at Lauren in South Carolina to do a coast down test where Mike Colucci said it's a great facility. They've got about 1.25 miles straight, protected by trees either side, where they can just do that coast down test. Might like to explain what the benefits of doing that are.
No, I mean, it's rolling mass. I mean, how much rolling resistance does the car actually have? I mean, in other words, if you have the engine turned off and everything, pushing on the back of the car, how much energy does it take just for that car to roll, and trying to reduce the amount of friction, you know, on just all the moving pieces as it goes along, so it runs freer, if you will. Very popular with stock car teams. It's been done for many, many years, and Mike said, for me and for many people, it's like watching grass grow. He said, but the engineers love it. It is absolutely the most boring thing you have to do in the world. Let's update you with GT, and let's update you more to the point about the 70 Speed Source Mazda Sylvain Tremblay. The Rolex 24 GT class winner has come from starting on pit road up into 3rd in class. A tremendous effort.
They really have. They were working feverishly to get that car. It was about 2 hours, 10 minutes before the car had to be in pit lane when that incident happened, and there was a lot of damage, Dorsey, to that left front suspension, so very lucky that it didn't get back into the chassis, but those are the brakes you need. Yes, you're going to get some bad luck in a championship season, but rather than the chassis being damaged, they couldn't have started today, and the rules prohibit these drivers switching over to the 69 machine at the last minute, so they were effectively out if that car was damaged beyond repair in this early stage of the day. So great recovery run for these boys. It's an amazing job that they did in the short period of time they had from when that crash happened to get this car on the grid, make the start of this race. He's running a lap time of 53.60. That's only 3/10 off of a pole position time. So Sylvain right now really running hard. The one thing you have to worry about, though, when you do a repair in that shorter period of time, are there any trickle-down effects? Did something get hurt that you don't see? And 6 hours around this place is going to take its toll. Let's keep our fingers crossed for the boys. They don't have any further problems before the end of the race.
On the traffic, Sylvain. Outside.
Well, David Haskell was behind the wheel of the 70 car this morning in practice when the accident happened. I saw you and Sylvain right after that, and you guys looked like you just got kicked in the gut. All the emotion just taken out of you. But the car looks great right now. Any concerns about anything you guys may have missed in fixing that car?
I think everybody did an awesome job. I can't believe it. I just want to thank everybody in the crew because they just went right at it. I mean, everybody was down for like a second and then right back at it again, and it's just awesome to see it out there. We did everything we know how to do, and I think it's going to hold together. It's a pretty strong car. I mean, we just ran it at a wall, and we're back out there in P2 right now, so it's looking pretty good.
Well, it's a strong car, and it's also a strong team. 50% of their original personnel back from 2001 are still with this team.
And not only is this a great story, Chris, from pit road to second, so too in Daytona prototypes. Look for the 99 Gainsco Bob stalling car of Alex Gurney. They too started on pit lane and have now worked their way up into 3rd in class. So it's David Donahue, the white, red and blue Brumos Porsche leads the way, and then Max Angelelli and then Alex Gurney, top 3. Here it is, the Gainsco machine looking for their 3rd consecutive win at this circuit. And we'll take you back to show you the pass that was executed on the SunTrust Pontiac Riley. Got to get used to saying that again instead of saying the Pontiac Dallara.
It's tough. Here we see it, Dors. Coming off of turn 1, Angelelli balked slightly by traffic. Gurney has a head of steam. Nice clean pass.
Yeah, and he lets it happen too. You see, he didn't even fight for it at all. That Porsche really messed up Angelelli's speed, and of course Alex was there, saw what was happening, moved to the inside, and you know, Max, okay, you got me. Go ahead.
Look at the gap already. I think Gurney has a very fast race car. Was probably getting frustrated by being behind Angelelli, and the aerodynamics get taken away from you when you're that close to another car, and that's what Pruitt's going through right now.
Pruitt got a first-class seat view of that pass, and now he wants to do the same for himself and his Telmex Lexus Riley.
Oh, glad I've got going up the inside. But, you know, you call him Maxi X. He's the guy that can really outbrake anybody. He really gets in deep on the brake pedal.
Pruitt has won this event before with his former teammate, Max Pappas, and the legendary Hurley Haywood back in the driver's seat. We'll tell you more about that after the break. The Brumos Porsche of David Donohue is the current race leader. And after a little bit of arm wrestling and push and shove, the Brumos Porsche also went to victory lane here at Watkins Glen. Back in 2003, the inaugural year of Daytona Prototypes, David Donohue and his then co-drivers Mike Borkowski and Scott Goodyear. There is the late Bob Snodgrass, the former principal of Brumos Racing, victorious here at Snodgrass's home track. And David continues to lead the way by a healthy 5+ seconds as we welcome you back to the Sahlen 6 Hours of the Glen.
But that margin has been halfly. It was up to about 10 seconds, so traffic can easily take a big chunk out of that lead. But so great to see those Brumos colors back up front again.
Especially at this racetrack and the history of that car, those colors have.
And we mentioned as we were going to the break that Hurley Haywood is back in the driver's seat. I asked him yesterday, do you remember how to do it? And he laughed and he said, yeah, it's good to be back. Brian?
You talk about the history of Brumos, you can't talk about that without talking about this man, Hurley Haywood. For you guys, that 58 car running up front right now, Hurley, and you guys seem to have had the pace all season long, but you need to make some of your own luck. We were talking about that the other day. What's it going to take to find the checkered flag?
Well, we've been so close for so many times, and we just need to, you know, bang that door down. And once we do that, I think we'll be on the victory podium a lot more often. But it's just that one time getting through that door, just need a little bit of luck, but David's doing a great job, and the 59 car is, you know, running pretty good too. So keep our fingers crossed and see what happens.
We talk about it's not going to be long. Everybody thinks, you know, eventually that door is going to get broken down, like you say. To do that here in a 6-hour race with the history that you guys have at this racetrack, Bob Snodgrass's memory, what would it mean to take that checkered flag here?
Well, I think that the victory lane would be full of a lot of grown men crying, I'll tell you that. I mean, this is Bob loved coming up to Watkins Glen. This was his home track. He lived in Elmira, so for us to win it after all that we've been through would be a dream come true.
Right now, this team looking very strong. David Donohue out in front. Chris?
Well, we saw that incident with Ricardo Zonta in qualifying yesterday. Well, he just lost it in the laces of the boot. Big accident, but the team's got the car back together. Can that Lola break through and win today?
Yeah, I mean, the guys did a great job last night. And unfortunately, the car got away from Ricardo there. We tried a lot of different things, obviously, on a brand new car. And we went a little bit too far in qualifying there, I guess. And, you know, we lost the car. But the guys did an awesome job last night, got it back together. And, you know, we're out there racing right now.
Both you and Ricardo going back and forth to Le Mans for the test last weekend and then leaving again on Sunday. How difficult has that been, and also trying to work things in with the Rolex schedule?
Well, we're very fortunate to have a great team owner here in Tracy Crone that, you know, flies us back and forth on his plane. And we have a great, you know, great team back in Le Mans, you know, racing competition as well, prepping the car for us there. So not really a big deal. It's just, you know, you have to switch from one car to another, but you can do that basically on the flight back over. So no big deal.
Now, we're also leaving on Sunday. Any room on that plane?
Let's have a chat with Tracy about that, right?
Good luck today, man.
Wow, his glasses, Lee, look bigger than yours. Unbelievable. You look like a bowling ball this weekend. 0-1 is in. Here we see the crew go to work, so have to try and work out the strategy here. I'm not sure if Pruitt was having an issue, was worried about the traffic. Maybe he felt he had a faster race car than he was being allowed to show here. Quick blowout of the radiator there, and he's back underway. Full service, it looked like.
That's one thing at this racetrack. That blowout of the radiator is very important. These cars run, they tend to run really close to hot anyway. And after 6 hours or even after an hour or two, that rubber buildup gets in that radiator. And if you don't keep cleaning it out, it just gets more and more clogged.
Tell us more about the 01, Chris.
Well, they were just in pit lane, guys. Pretty standard stop. Fuel, tires, Rojas behind the wheel. Got to remember back to those opening laps. The 01 did come into pit lane and take fuel. So this is just that stop after that. Getting with Scott Pruitt here. Scott, first couple hours of this race, how'd everything go?
Good. Car's running good. Had my family at home. The Telmex car doing exactly what we need to do. Unfortunately, we started from pit lane, so that's kind of changed our strategy a little bit. But the car itself, It's running good. We're just saving fuel, actually. We're waiting for those other guys to get into trouble or have a problem. But, you know, first hour in the race, you're not going to win anything.
Why'd you guys start from pit lane today?
Fuel mileage, stay out of any sort of garbage. You know, when you're in the middle of things, you just open yourself up to being in the middle of something. We had already planned to pit on lap 2 anyway, so there's really nothing to gain.
Well, nothing to gain. And as big a lead as they have in the championship, they're playing it conservative.
I don't quite understand. You know, they said they were saving fuel. They started from pit lane, but they're the first to pit. And we understand they did take fuel on that splash early, so they'd have been running out, but I would have thought they had a bit more gas in the tank. But it's all about how many pit stops you need to make from this point forward.
Let's take you back to a couple of laps ago in an incident involving the 91 Riley Matthews Pontiac Riley. Take a look at this on the front straight.
Oh boy, this is an area, Calvin, that
he didn't get away with it. Damage to the right rear corner.
That's a mild wreck to spin in that corner, though. I'll tell you. Watch on board here, Jim Matthews. Boy, just car breaks free completely. Does a good job keeping it locked up, but still backs on into the wall.
Chris?
Well, Jim got very lucky, too, because he hadn't spun past the entrance of pit lane. So as soon as he got the car going, he was able to pull directly into pit lane, get 4 fresh tires, and fill the car up. They didn't change drivers, though, so that team going with another stint with Jim Matthews behind the wheel.
Now, Chris, I'm not sure if you were down there, but do you know, was Mark Goosen's just not ready? Is that why they didn't change drivers? So I thought they'd want to get the Goose in there.
Yeah, Cal, I don't think he was ready because obviously it was just a spin that came out of nowhere, and I don't think that these guys were in their fuel window where they wanted to come to pit lane yet. So the team was really just unprepared. But they did jump on the car as soon as Jim got it in here. They put 4 tires on it, put fuel on. It was a very quick stop, so he didn't lose a lap.
Gotcha.
To add insult to that crash, he was also penalised for speeding on pit road. So a little hiccup there for Riley Matthews, but they will bounce back. Donohue is still setting the mark. In the second practice session yesterday, we'll see who can grab the pole.
Englishman, Lewis Hamilton. Where's the Aussie?
He's there. He's tied for 6th, I think, in the championship at the moment. Having his best year in Formula 1 is Mark Webber, but we'll see. We welcome you back. You're watching Grand Am here on Speed. Live from Watkins Glen, and race leader David Donohue has done a superb job in that Porsche-powered Riley. However, he is being hunted down, and very effectively, by the defending champion, Alex Gurney and John Fogarty. Doing it alone here today. Special guest, Cristiano De Matta. Of course, we saw Drive at the last round at Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca. He's here with the team, supporting them, watching them, learning more about sports car racing and Grand Am Daytona prototype competition. It's on at the front, though. Nothing between them. That gap has been coming down rapidly. It's less than half a second.
He's running from 5 seconds back to the half a second you see right now. I don't know if that was traffic or not, but Alex Gurney wants the lead.
And they're going for 3 in a row here at Watkins Glen. I sat next to Alex on the plane on the way up here, and he said, we feel really good about this weekend. We don't have the dominance that we had last year, but we're really getting to grips with these tires. We've made the adjustments, both driving-wise and setup-wise. We're ready to win.
They're out on their own. And about 9 seconds further back is the number 10, SunTrust Wayne Taylor Racing Pontiac. Let's go to their camp now.
Well, it's been a tough month for Wayne Taylor, but he's smiling today. Wayne, how did the fire in Texas compare to the fire at Mid-Ohio in 2005?
2005 was a walk in the park compared to what this team has just gone through. You know, in 2005, all we did was we burnt the race car down. This time coming back, you know, we not only burnt the race car, literally everything burnt, and you know, everything that we'd built up for this this new team a year ago, that took us 4 months to do. We suddenly had 2 weeks to do it again and come back here. So the guys have done an outstanding job. We were lucky that we hadn't sold the other car, and of course to come here, you know, after such a disaster and put it on the pole and be running as well as we are, it's pretty cool.
Well, pretty cool, and it looks like maybe he's got some new glasses this weekend, so hopefully that'll bring some good luck to the team too. Right?
Probably burnt them up.
Well, did you see that? While we were listening to Wayne Taylor, contact between David Donohue and the PR1 Pontiac of Mike Forrest. It was fairly innocent. It was just a glance. Let's take you back and have a look at it.
Getting along, a good run up the inside here, but watch what happens. David doesn't quite clear when he cuts over, and they make contact side to side right there. he wasn't really clear all the way by.
Surprising, because he needed to get further over to the right to set up for that corner. So I think the GT car was a little surprised. He stayed in the middle of the road. So again, he's feeling the pressure right now from Gurney. Maybe he thought he needed to protect. Maybe he was trying to get a look. It's very hard when you get across the racetrack to see where your competitor is. Maybe he thought Gurney was going to make a move to the inside. He wanted to defend that if possible.
We talk about the bad luck down at SunTrust Racing, but it's been down here at Rum Bum too. And Gene, I know you guys had the problem in Mexico City, but the fire at Laguna, were even you impressed with this small team, what they were able to do to get you back on track and running so well here?
Well, Brian, you know, to be quite honest with you, it's when you see a fire like that, the first thing that comes to mind is you're not going to be able to make the next race. But I got to say, thank you very much to Jen and Lou Bacardi and the whole Rum Bum team and all my crew. I mean, if it wasn't without them, there's no way we could have done it. You know, they put the car back together in a week and a half and made it cross country. I don't know how they did it, but we're here and we're competitive.
It was impressive stuff. You talk about being competitive as well. Matt Plum giving you big kudos the other day, talking about how well you're adapting to this Daytona prototype. You've got to be feeling more and more comfortable every time you're in the car.
Oh, Brian, it's an absolute thrill to drive. I mean, these cars are awesome. You know, they're very sturdy. You can beat up on them. The wheel-to-wheel racing, I feel very comfortable in the car. A little more seat time. Hopefully, I'll be running a little closer up front. But, you know, like I said, the car's been up front all the time, and we're having a great time.
Pep, impressive performance for this team, both on and off the track, Lee.
He talked about, you know, how sturdy the cars are and banging side to side. It's the NASCAR version of a sports car, make no doubt about it. These guys, they can rough it up, and the cars will take it.
And Gene Siegel will get his chance in the 7rumbum.com car shortly. Great work by that team, crew chief Evan Chance and the staff, as we see the 26 off course up against the wall and stationary. That is frustrating.
It really is, and the question will be, will this bring out a caution? And meanwhile, up front, Gurney's taking it to the point. He's got around David Donahue for the lead of this race.
And you could see that coming. It was going to happen. It was imminent. There's the 26 car, again, off the outside of turn 6.
It's a dangerous position.
Very bad spot to be in.
Joe Jackalone in the Gotham competition Porsche in a very precarious position, but a new race leader. Will we see the third full course caution fly? We wait. We'll see if Joe can get that car going, or if indeed he is stranded. No, we're going full course caution. Full course caution for the third time here at Watkins Glen, right when Gurney takes the lead of the motor race.
I would think we'll see some of these leaders pitting. They're getting towards the end of their pit window here. 34 laps on the board for the Alex Gurney machine. So let's look for some activity again. Pit lane will be closed immediately, so he won't be coming in this time. Pit lane is closed. They'll bring the field together. Then the first lap after that, DP only are allowed into pit lane.
I just want to get back to as the field compress, I just want to finish off on that story about the rumbum.com car. Evan Chance and all of the boys at Siegel Sport, basically from the rear screen back, as there's still damage on the 21 Matt Connolly car, from the rear screen back was basically brand new. They'd replace all the pipes, all the wiring, everything, new bell housing, new rear wing assembly. I think they even put a new roof on the car. So a lot of work. We talk a lot about the SunTrust boys in there and their dilemmas, but also Siegel Sport went through their fair share as well.
They've been sensational this year, Lee. I mean, that small team, their engineering staff changed. They took the records with them, supposedly. So Brian Marr now on board. He has a lot of champ car experience as the engineer of that 7 car. And this guy, Matt Plum, he's taken the lead of races. He's ready to win one.
There's a little bit of weather closing in here in upstate New York after a beautiful start to the day. The clouds are rolling in. Will weather have an impact on this race? We'll find out. Extraordinary scenes here at Watkins Glen. Rain seems to always be a feature here of the 6 hour, and it is again in 2008. Chris.
Well, the skies have opened up and it is pouring down here on the front straightaway. The 99 in. Alex Gurney staying behind the wheel doing fuel and tires. They are putting slick tires on the Gainesco machine, because when you look behind this cloud where the weather's coming from, it is completely blue. So the track very wet right now. These guys are going to have to tiptoe around, but it should dry out. Brian?
Should be a routine stop down here at the 58. Darren Law taking over, dry tires as well. The only cloud we see is the one that just happened to come over pit lane. Now, if you were out on the racetrack on hot slicks right now, it wouldn't be that big of a problem. But remember, all these drivers going out on the racetrack right now are on stickers, and that could be an issue here in the first couple of laps.
Boy, this would be a time where you'd like to have a set of scrub tires. I'll tell you that much. Go out there right now on stickers. is going to be really a nice skating rink down in turn 1.
And the 58, oh, I knew that was going to be close. I was going to say, if the 58 boys can get Darren Law out quick enough, it would have been good, but they didn't. Chris.
Also, the Telmex machine came back to pit lane. We just saw them in probably about 10-15 minutes ago. So Memo Rojas taking advantage of this caution just to fuel up. And already the rain has stopped on the front straightaway here. So the track might be wet and slick, but it's going to dry out.
Chris, were you there? Did he take tires? He may have the advantage Brian is talking about by just topping up on fuel, keeping the tires on.
Just topping up, Cal. So he's got hot tires. So he's definitely going to have an advantage out there. And that tank is full.
Well, these guys have got to really scrub their tires on the dry part of the circuit, which is right about where they're at right now. Once they get up over the top of this hill, it didn't rain up there, so they really got to scrub those stickers and get some heat in them before they get to that turn 1, because it's going to be...
Whoop. You just have to be patient, but as you know, Dorsey, in these conditions, you can be going as slow as you think is impossible to keep the car literally rolling. And you can still fly off the racetrack, so expect some action here when the boys go back to green.
Credit to the Gainscote boys, because there was a little bit of a hiccup on the way out, and there was one team member in particular who helped Alex Gurney get going and get out on pit road. There was a tussle between it and the 58 Brumos team, but the 99 stayed ahead. Always frantic, tense moments on pit lane. We take a look at our Pirelli setup graphic here for the 6 hours of the Glen, and have a look at those numbers.
A lot of tires here today.
400 rain tires. That may be important if we see a lot of rain here for both classes. So a lot of work for those Pirelli boys if we suddenly get these changing conditions. The problem is if we get that intermittent weather we've seen in races past, where it's dry, then it's wet, and you put the wets on and you burn them off. That's where they really go through those wets in a hurry.
I remember running the New York 500, and it did this all day. It rained like that, and it stopped. Then it rained again, then it stopped.
Let's go back to 2004 and this unforgettable moment involving Kevin Buckler and his TRG Porsche. That was JC France for Brumos. Milka Duno was involved a little further down. There's Milka just sliding in the Crawford, the Sitco Crawford. Wait for this. There's a massive hit coming. That was maybe Justin Marks or Joey Hand. I think that may have been Mike Levitas, I'm not sure. And then in comes Mike Boffman with a massive hit. There was Levitas in the 36. And now the grass is no longer.
And that's what I was talking about before, about the improvements here at Watkins Glen. This is a great racing circuit. They're getting rid of those grass areas. They're paving them all, giving you some more room to try to get things under control when it goes bad.
Brighter skies, as you can see, and now the GT field hits pit lane.
First, just reminding you again with the caution sequence and protocol. Daytona prototypes pit first. Once they're serviced, it's GTs next. And we're going to go to pit road first up with Chris Neville. Take it away, Chris.
Well, we can see Sylvain Tremblay bringing the Mazda to pit lane here. The front of this car, all just spare parts. The 70 taped to the hood of this car after that big wreck this morning. Nick Ham getting behind the wheel. This team really rebounding after all those problems this morning, the massive shunt that this car took. So this team going to be able to stay in the points and maybe come away with a podium or a win here today. Looks like a good stop by them. Just waiting on fuel and tires, right?
Down at TRG, Richard Westbrook just climbed out of the 66. Bryce Miller will now be taking over. Miller and Werner had a good run here last year, so they know the track well, but just struggling a little bit with these Pirelli tires on this Porsche here at Watkins Glen in the heat so far this weekend. A lot of the Porsche teams have, but Miller getting behind the wheel as Kevin Buckler sat and watched that replay of a couple of years ago. He looked up at the big screen and went, ow. Right now, Bryce Miller trying to get situated in that Porsche and get back on track, Lee.
He said they're just trying to find the sweet spot too. They've really been struggling this year, not just this weekend, but this year with an understeer problem. And he said, you know, understeer in a Porsche, he said, you know, it's kind of foreign to me.
They did some testing in Infineon right before Laguna Seca and made a little bit of progress, but still didn't really get to the bottom of the issue.
So perhaps they've got on top of it today. We'll follow their progress. Second at the time of pitting in GT, but they're fighting with the 70 and the 69 of Speed Source. Those Mazdas are quick here at the Glen. You're watching Grand Am on Speed. We're here at the 6 hours of the Glen, but soon, in just under 25 minutes' time, we'll be taking you to Montreal for qualifying the Canadian F1 Grand Prix. That's coming up. But we're not done here today at Watkins Glen. We'll be back at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, taking you right through to the finish and beyond here at the Glen. And that is 2:30 Eastern, right through for another 3 hours until 5:30, and then Sprint Cup practice. Following that great day here on Speed, welcome back to Watkins Glen. And you're looking at The 16 of Antonio Garcia, who leads the way. Of course, that last yellow, that last sequence of stops, everybody's gone in. There's big dramas, though, in the GT class for the pole-sitting car and the race-leading car.
Well, they effectively pitted a lap later than the 70 machine, so they got caught out. Was the DP Phil stream by to take the green. That was a very costly mistake by the Speed Source boys on the 69.
Tell us more, Chris.
Well, what they were trying to do is get a lap on the GT field. Initially, they got waved by because of the distance they had between themselves and the 70 cars, so they were hoping to catch up to the back of the GT field. However, they couldn't, so they were trying a little trick. It didn't work out. They didn't get that lap.
Okay, that makes sense as to what they were doing. Initially, it looked like a big mistake. We can't always tell the track position of the cars from up here in the booth, but here we see David Empringham running a little bit wide there. He made a move to try and get back, or a lap back. He's 3 laps down after that oil problem early in the event in the 2 machine. Now he's letting the leaders through.
Still really damp down there in turn 1. All these guys did a great job not having a big mix-up on that restart.
Look at this, look at this. Darren Law was fending off a challenge from Angelelli, who had got by Rojas. That turn 1 area was not productive for Mamo. And this is 99, Alex Gurney putting the pressure on Chiva Racing's Antonio Garcia. Garcia, one of 13 drivers competing here today who will make the trip over to Le Mans next weekend. A very busy week in sports car racing. Brian?
Eddie Cheever up on the timing stand right now. Eddie, good to see you back. You were at Indy for the last couple of rounds. Good to see you back. The car running up front. How's the pit strategy working for you guys right now?
We just made a mistake because we thought it was going to rain more than it did. And so we're kind of hoping for a yellow here. We don't have that many laps of fuel in it, so mathematics is what it is. But we got shuffled out, and now we're kind of out of the queue. But it's good. The car's running well, and we got a long way to go. So positive way of looking at it is we can make it up.
Eddie Cheever certainly knows about endurance racing. He's been there himself, and right now trying to take this team to the front. They're doing a good job this weekend, guys.
He talked about it, Brian. 32 laps on the board since their last pit stop, so he's going to be getting very close to running out of fuel. So, again, it looks good right now, but Antonio Garcia, he's just got a few little droplets left in that fuel tank, does.
And he doesn't have much tire either, doesn't look like. That car's really dancing around on him quite a bit. He's trying to hold off the Gainesco machine, but, you know, he knows now that he's going to have to come in the next lap or two, so there's no need to race anybody.
This team had a problem here in the first practice session, lost an oil line, which effectively then dropped the oil pressure to a point they weren't comfortable with it. Running against, they had to change the motor. This crew has worked very hard, tirelessly, led by Dave Meehan, who leads this Chiva group, and a whole new bunch of mechanics, effectively a big turnover in the off-season, so a bunch of new guys trying to get into rhythm of one another, how they work together. That's a big challenge for a race team.
I'll show you what happened a few moments ago in front of the new GT class leader, the championship points leader, the 07 of Kelly Collins. Check this out. The 21 Matt Connolly Pontiac takes a wild ride. Diego Alessi at the wheel.
Hood is finally gone.
I'm sure they ripped that hood off in the pit thing. Alessi did a great job not to lose that car beyond what it was. Once you get in that grass up there, man, he did all the right stuff to get it back on track.
We talk about this 6 hour, Dorsey. It's a question of survival. You got that championship lead at 6 hours. Just keeping that car out there. On board now with Kelly Collins. He and his teammate have just done a tremendous job this year. Really performing very well. Ticking all of the boxes. Making it happen. Of course, this year, or this race, in fact, there has been a weight adjustment. Paul Edwards alluded to this in his pre-race interview. They've had some performance balancing put on this car. This has been the dominant car in GT racing this year. They've had 100 pounds of weight added, Dorsey, but more importantly, the weight bias has changed tremendously as well. Talk about that from your Trans Am days. What does that do?
Usually when you get a weight penalty, they'll say, okay, you're 100 pounds heavier. You can put that weight wherever you want. This is the first time I've ever seen them mandate that they put the percentage of weight on the nose of the car. This is a very well-balanced car. Had 51% rear weight, and that's what you want, because when you get on the brakes really hard, you got 51% of the car's weight at the back, it transfers up to the front, becomes more neutral. Now they've got the other way around. They've got more weight up on the front of the car, less at the rear. What it'll do, it'll be a little worse under braking. They'll probably have to run bigger springs. We heard about the split. You heard Paul Edwards talking about we have a bigger spring split now, which means it had to go up on the spring rate on the front. It'll make the front a little bit more understeer than it was before. And then when they come off tight corners with less rear weight, it's going to spin the tires up a little bit easier.
And it's the first time they've raced with an increased overall weight since debuting at the Rolex 24 at Daytona last year. Premiering July 17, we put the spotlight on life in the crash lane, where you can ride with Chicago's toughest family of towers. Find out why cleaning up the mess isn't for the faint of heart. Wrecked, the new series, premieres July 17, right here on Speed. And that may be a topical word, wrecked. What has happened to the 30? The race's edge, Mazda, at one point in time was running in the top 3. At one stage in this race, we had 1, 2, and 3 in class where all the Mazda RX-8's Craig Stone is stationary.
This, of course, in the inner loop, as you try to exit, gets loose, loses the car across the top of the curbing, locks it up, and very lucky man. Well, he did get into the barrier, but not as bad as I thought.
Yeah. Tough corner there. I mean, you really have to keep your eyes looking ahead, and it's hard to feel the edge of the racetrack. He just had a bit too much steering and put through the middle. Pinched it a little bit. May have got away with it, though.
Looks all right.
Jonathan Bomarito qualified and started the car, hands it over to Craig Stone, who is the season-long driver in this RX-8. Tell us more about this team, Brian.
I can tell you about Craig Stone, guys. He is very tall. I watched that slide here, and it reminded me of what happened to him at Lime Rock. He got a big lurid slide at Lime Rock and had to go down a gear, reached over to downshift, and when he hit the gear shift lever so hard, it dislocated his right shoulder. So, you know, you look at him, he's like 6'5". He is shoehorned in that car, and you can just imagine when the car gets loose like that, how hard it is for him to get it under control with those long arms and long legs.
I was talking to John Rocky about that, and he said, you know, we're looking at our laps. I was like, come on, dude, pull your finger out, get it going. And finally, after the race, they realized what had happened. But he suffered through the pain, and he is really a surprise this year, and his performance has been sensational. Craig Stone in his mid-30s and making somewhat of a comeback after about 10 years away from the driver's seat. Showed a lot of promise in his early career, and now coming back to really do great things on the racetrack.
Race leading car, the Gainsco Auto Insurance 99 Bob Stallings machine. Alex Gurney, last year's co-champion in Daytona Prototypes, leading the way, but he had a nervous moment because of this.
Wow, what a spin.
Yeah, that's Antonio Garcia, which I told you that the rear tires were going off on that car. He needed fuel as well, but that was quite the spin right in front of Alex.
Eddie said they needed a yellow. I think he was trying to create his own there.
It could have almost done it.
Alex boasts a 5.5-second lead, looking good. The car looks great. Remember, it started from pit lane as well. This car, along with the 01, the Telmex Ganassi Lexus, did not get a fair run, you could say, in qualifying. This is the second placed 58 of Darren Law. Boy, that Brumos Porsche is running beautifully today. Then Angelelli is third. Ricardo Zonta recovering from that huge crash in qualifying. That team also, like the Racer's Edge team, worked past the midnight hour last night to get the 76 machine up and running, the new Proto Auto Lola.
And not far behind that is Memo Rojas in the 01 car. Also, like you said, started from pit lane.
Traffic coming into play here. Zonta is putting pressure on his friend and manager, Max Angelelli.
This is where he had the problem yesterday in qualifying. This exact corner. Spoke to Jeff Hazel, who runs this team, and said this car is really good in race trim. One of the issues they have is when they go back to green flag racing, the tires are too cool. So there's something with the setup on that car that makes it easier over the course of the stint. But when we get back to green flag racing, but look at this. Zonta making a move down the inside of Angelelli.
Oh, and Angelelli chopped.
Making life difficult.
That was nowhere near the brake zone, and Angelelli just chopped across his bow.
I'm going to make it difficult for you to get by. A very busy week for Ricardo as well. He takes the flight across to Le Mans. He was there last week for the test day. He is competing in one of the 3 Peugeot 908s in their field, their lineup of F1, former F1 stars.
Settling back down again. Angelelli, just as always, very aggressive, and he probably has a different mindset now. Typically, he's in championship mode. Now this season has really gotten away from them, and they're going to be looking for victories whenever they can. But Zonta really putting the pressure on. That Lola looks great in race trim, Dorsey.
Yeah, it really does. That little squabble they had back there, though, has allowed Memo Rojas to gain ground to the 2. The Corvette's very slow on the racetrack there. Everybody got by it cleanly, however.
They're very happy with the development curve of this new Lola, the Proto Auto car. They had a good run going at Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca. Jeff Hazel told me we're still not good on new tyres or cold tyres. He said we're getting around that. We're going to test some new aero parts here on Monday at the Grand Am Rolex Series test day. And so we've got some things on our agenda.
Well, it's the same thing, really. It's easy on the tyres, Dorsey, but they can't get the optimum performance in qualifying, like the peak lap. They can't really optimize that. And Zonta's going to be in good shape here, I think. Or will the GT car balk him?
It's Robin Liddell. Robin Liddell ahead. He goes one side. Angelelli goes the other. Great run, Max Angelelli. Will that put him wide, though? No.
3 wide going into the toe of the boot. That was awesome. All good drivers. They all put a lot of respect to one another right there.
Smart driving right by Robin Liddell. He just held his line and let the guys go either side of him.
And Rojas, that has allowed Rojas in the background to gain ground on Max Angelelli and Ricardo Zonta. We'll take a break. When we come back, our final segment of Grand Am Racing on Speed. Then we go to Canada for F1 qualifying. We welcome you back to Watkins Glen. And while we're away, the pass was made. Ricardo Zonta on Max Angelelli, and it was only a few seconds ago. And it was through a very high-speed section of the course. Dawes, talk us through it.
Well, one thing I saw, Kevin, right here, let's get down into turn 1. Everything's going along pretty well, but watch the 10. It stumbles right here. Just doesn't pick up any speed. You saw Max right away know there's something wrong. Moved to the inside to defend.
Well, yeah, I think he thought Zonta was going to make a move to the inside. Zonta had already committed to the outside, but it was weird. He looked good through the corner, got off the curb a little bit, but not enough to really get out of the throttle, I wouldn't have thought. Now you see Zonta immediately pulling away like he has a faster race car at this point in the race, so very strange.
Yeah, I think Zonta is definitely the faster of the 2 cars right now, but I didn't like the way the 10 car looked back there. It definitely stumbled right in the middle of the corner.
Last lap around, Zonta and Darren Law, who he is now fighting with, had identical lap times, a 1:45.5. It was a full second faster than Alex Gurney, but Alex could have been caught up in traffic.
This time, however, Zonta 2 seconds faster. Now, that's not sheer pace, that's traffic as well. But here you see Darren Law trying to open the door on the 70 machine. Where does Zonta go? He's going to be aggressive here.
This is good. This is good. This is shades of Mexico City, where we really got to see Ricardo have a good, strong run in this new car.
That's such a gutsy move to do. As you go up through those S's flat out, you make the commitment. I'm going around on the outside, and there's just not much room. If you dare touch each other up there, you have a huge wreck.
In GT, it's still the 07 of Kelly Collins over Nick Ham, and Lee Keane for Farnbacher Lowles in the Porsche is in third in the 86.
There you see Darren Law threading his way carefully through this GT traffic. These are fast GT cars, but that is the difference in speed between a Daytona prototype and a GT machine. Zonta flashes by the Pontiac.
You see so many times when the Daytona prototypes pass a GT car, they don't allow enough room. They cut chop down in front of them. They get clipped, and it's just a very strange, passing thing.
This is the fight for second. Darren Law from Brumos holds on to that position. Ricardo Zonta from Krone Racing wants it. Angelelli is 4th. Memo Rojas for Ganassi is 5th. Mark Wilkins for AIM Autosport is 6th. Tell us more about the 10, Chris.
Well, you guys were worried about the 10 car maybe slipping back a little bit. So was Max Angelelli, who was just on the radio to the team, concerned that he maybe thought he had a tire going down. The team has been watching the telemetry, said the pressures are fine. So I don't know what was going on the racetrack, but maybe he drove offline a little bit, got a little pickup on the tire, so it took a few corners for that pickup to clear off the tires. But the team's saying pressures are fine, just go after him, Max. The tires should be clean by now.
We know that many of you tune in at varying times. If you're looking at the SunTrust car and saying, hey, that looks like the Riley, it is. Their SunTrust Delara, and a lot of their equipment, their transporter was burnt on traveling back from Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca to the team's headquarters in Indianapolis. Really tragic circumstances, but however, the Grand Am paddock and community rallied. Grand American Road Racing Association and its competitors really got behind and supported Wayne Taylor and his men. All of their suppliers and fellow competitors rallied to get these guys on track here in time for the Sahlen 6 hour. A wonderful display of sportsmanship.
Darren Law slices to the inside of the 16 machine. Zonta gets blocked, but I think there's a great point that Chris Neville made about Angelelli. Maybe when he was going through the traffic, he got out wide, got some of that pickup, and then he just didn't feel right. He really had a momentary pause there, Dorsey, when he got back to power out of turn 1.
And that it's probably exactly on the nail, hitting the nail on the head. You get that pickup on there, and then all of a sudden you turn and you feel something that's not right, and you can't commit.
Here is the race leader to the tune of 8.5 seconds. Remember, they are going for 3 consecutive victories here at Watkins Glen. They won both the 6 hour and the short course race last year. Could it be their first victory in 2008? To our GT class leader, it's the championship leader, Kelly Collins, taking over from Paul Edwards. And they are going it alone, just the two of them in this race. The sister car with Leighton Reese, Mark Bunting and Andy Pilgrim making a drop-in visit in the 06 Banner Pontiac GXPR. It is time to say farewell from Watkins Glen as we show you the top 5 in each of our classes. It's time to take you to Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal, Canada for F1 qualifying. Villeneuve was the winner of the 1979 US Grand Prix here at Watkins Glen. And F1 qualifying coming up next. We will come back at 2:30 Eastern to take you all the way to the checkered flag and beyond. But for now, join Bob Varsha and the boys and enjoy F1 qualifying.